Hey there, welcome to episode 147 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo, recording this at 8:48 in the morning a.m. Pacific Standard Time here in the greater Vegas area on this Friday, December 19, 2025. We do publish the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program episodes on Fridays. Perfect timing. Today's title and topic, Stall Recovery. If you've never been stalled before, no, we're not talking about airplanes. We're not talking about airfoils. We're not talking about aerodynamics, fluid dynamics. No, we're just talking about when we aren't making the progress we want to make. Stall recovery. If you're not familiar with the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, or perhaps not even Cafe Genius, let me tell you. So Cafe Genius is a project, or is a sort of it's an informal thing focused on our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem of the greater Vegas area, maybe beyond. Cafe, spelled with two F's, inspired by and homage to Cafe Centro, also two F's. Cafe Centro was, unfortunately, sadly, a coffee shop, small, quaint coffee shop in the San Francisco city of San Francisco, in the South Park, which is right across the street from the ballpark, Oracle Ballpark now. It used to be AT&T Ballpark. Before that, I think it was Pac-Bell Ballpark. I had been to the Cafe Centro many times. It's where startups start, as they used to say. It was an actual park around it with grass and trees and a park bench or two or more. It was a cool spot. It's arguably where Twitter got started. Jack Dorsey on his laptop hacking away, for better or worse. So that's Cafe Centro. And then Genius, as in the Genius Lunch, which was from the Downtown Project days, say 2000, I'll call it 2015, say 10 years ago. The Genius Lunches were a opportunity for people who were working on whatever they were working on, their endeavors, to take a break, go to lunch, totally ad hoc. No real agenda, just to get out of the whatever house, garage, co-work space, wherever they were, whatever they're doing, and speak to other people in a similar boat, and then get back to work or doing whatever they were doing. So yes, so the Genius Lunch was so named because people often had some sort of insight, what they're working on, what other people were working on, what's up, what's down, etc. So it was a good opportunity to kind of share ideas, compare notes, but without a lot of heavyweight commitment. Hey, we're having a lunch. You want to come? Oh, I can't. Okay. So totally lightweight. The Impresarios, that's this program, Cafe Genius Impresarios, is about, from the perspective of the impresarios in our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, the people that are making stuff happen, that are doing stuff. The sorts of people that would go to the Genius Lunch. Impresarios spelled correctly, but not so commonly with two S's. So this is an audio program about, and we could have guests. We have had guests. We may have a guest again. But it's essentially about our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem and the various things that we may pursue to make it better. Is that possible? I sometimes talk about the things I'm working on as examples. Perhaps I am an impresario. That remains to be seen. Can we call ourselves impresarios, or is that a label we receive from others? Who knows? Cafe Genius Impresarios, this is where you are listening to this program. That didn't make any sense? That's okay. 147 episodes in, we're allowed to take some liberties with grammar. I can't believe it's December 19th already. The calendar year is coming to an end. So we'll see how long this episode goes. It might reach all the way till the 31st. Who knows? It looks kind of long in my notes here. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including one long sentence? Oh, one long sentence, which I'll read. Oh, two. One 4-word sentence at the end. Brief summary, which I'll read to you, and then just the usual shameless self-promotion links. This is sort of I am playing the role of the stalled entrepreneur, which I also play in real life. And so we'll talk about that today. No links. This would be a nice time to have an interview with someone else, a conversation about the joys of being stuck or not making the progress we want to make. So on that note, let's get started on this lovely Friday. It's a little bit cooler than normal. That's good. My temperature thing says 49 Fahrenheit, 9 o'clock in the morning. It's not too bad. Let's go. The summary of today's episode. The calendar year is nearly ended and a new one soon to begin. The world is in its current state, as is your neighborhood. If you are working on something novel on a small team of co-founders or maybe on your own, it is entirely possible that you find yourself stalled. Let's talk about it. Often there's a seasonal depression. We're not going to get into that. Hopefully you're not depressed, but that can be a thing. I am in no way to be mistaken for a medical professional. I have zero training in any sort of psychological, therapeutic, anything. Lived experience is what we're going by today. As would, if we had a guest in, we'd probably, although maybe we could at some point. That's a different story for another time. Should we be looking at the real impacts of the startup scene, a startup culture, entrepreneurialism, the challenges? We could talk about the downtown project days and some of the issues that came to people's attention then. Some of them were profoundly unfortunate, but that's for another episode. Let's keep it pretty light today. Just being stalled. The links for today's episode, as usual, shameless self-promotion, Cafe Genius homepage, cafegenius.org, CAFEGENIUS, cafe with 2 F's, genius, no space, .org. The primary point of publication and more. Cafe Genius is more than an audio program. So the Impresario's audio program is available at this website. There will be, I've spoken of this in the future tense for too long. The older content from Cafe Genius, which was basically about the Pitch Workout Room and Pitch Mingle, which is where Cafe Genius got started. And then we'll have to put some other stuff on there, and upcoming Genius Roundtable, Initiative 2026, and Genius Lunch scheduling. So there's more going on that website. Coming soon, as it always will be. Always under construction, but the primary point of publication for this audio program should be a website that I own. Spotify will continue to be one of the places, as will the Apple, the Amazon, the YouTube channel, etc. But owning your brand, always important. My host profile page linking everything. If I had a guest, they would also probably have at least one link that I would share. But today it's just me, host. Profile page at buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo has links to all of my audio programs, projects, and biographical information, affiliate links for products that I actually use, including some of my favorite coffees and some other things. You're under no obligation to visit that site, to spend any money there, to click on any affiliate links, or to do anything really. You are your own person, but thanks for clicking on that if you are curious. The Buy Me an Update audio program is published at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts first, hence the name, but it is also available through Spotify, Amazon, Apple, YouTube, etc. Similarly, the Coffee Solo is available on ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts. That show has no agenda and no schedule. You can find all of these and more on the profile page linking everything, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, no space, DANHUGO. On that note, let us begin. So first, here's the thing. There's too much focus, in my opinion, on tech and all things tech here in Vegas and beyond. The tech has taken over the world, as we know, though we're not going to get into this too much. The AI bubble, if you like, makes up a substantial part of our economy at the moment, so that if there were no AI bubble, there wouldn't be such good news, if there is any good news to be had. So while tech is important, so are a lot of other things, especially if something you're working on or are interested in or pursuing is not necessarily tech. Maybe it's tech adjacent, or maybe it's not tech at all. And what is sometimes lost in the shuffle is how important the thing you are working on is to you, and maybe to other people, but certainly to you. Keep that in mind. We will visit this soon. When you're evaluating all these things that I'm going to talk about, the thing that you're working on is important to you. Don't lose track of that. Sometimes, who types this stuff? What a weird typo. I typed away instead of we. sometimes we hear about burnout. And while I am not a social psychologist, just to reiterate, and I'll probably say it again, by any means, I am going to offer this opinion that someone who is burned out has been stalled for too long, or, and this is important later, they may not have been stalled. They may have just been pushing themselves to avoid a stall, where eventually we all reach a point. So a person who's burned out, we all reach a point, if that happens to you or me, where we have no more to put into that effort. We're just done. Think of it as similar to a physical exercise where you might run out of energy. Maybe you can't push that bar one more time. Maybe you can't take another step. That's kind of like being burned out. Now, there were hints, there were signals that you should have been receiving about the impending burnout. Whether you were paying attention or not is another story, and I can't give you advice about yourself. That's you're the expert there. But this will be something to think about. So things that are important to you, getting burned out, stalling. What a dismal episode today is. In my lived experience, there is not an automatic assessment we can make about the solo pursuits over team pursuits stories. The solopreneur almost certainly has a particular personality. Maybe they like to work by themselves. Maybe just the way that's where I am. I do like going solo, although not 100%. We'll talk about that some other time. Teams are made up of individuals with their own personalities. We will all handle pressure, fatigue, and frustration, among other things, in different ways. And while teams may have a direct path to conversation about the current state of affairs at any given time, this doesn't happen automatically, by the way. Dysfunction does exist, even if we don't know it yet. But if you're working with something on a team, you have a collection of one or more other people that should be at least somewhat aware of where the overall project is or the goings on. So you can start off with some sort of common context. Although I'm sure you will find that there is some updating to do. That's a team communication thing. That's a whole other field of expertise. Going solo is almost entirely different for some, and we will talk about why. Not only tech, by the way. I am in tech. I have been for a long time, but I have also done the business side of all this stuff, having my own startups and whatnot. I have worked in food service. I am the managing director of a nonprofit. I have participated in nonprofit governance of other organizations. So I was on a board of directors, for example. I have worked on other projects for other people and not always in tech. So in my lived experience and from my conversations with people with a variety of pursuits, I will suggest that the tech world and the rest of the world are not really dissimilar, especially when it comes to doing something new as an entrepreneur or an innovator or both. But it's absolutely possible to stall doing just about anything. So often you will hear about tech projects, and you'll see, if you're a GitHub fan, for example, they have the grid. I can't remember what they call it, but the little green squares, and the darker the green, the more you did that day. That's not always great. Like you're being judged. Oh, you have too many lighter colored or white squares. What were you doing that day? So yeah, that's you don't get that sorts of measurement in other areas. So don't always. Well, your mileage may vary. Who am I to say? A stall is possible when any number of factors align. This is probably somewhat personal, so your mileage may vary here as well. Let me offer this. This dramatic drop in productivity and or energy can be coincident with a lack of external interest, real or perceived. Forget the financial aspects here. If you own a coffee shop, for example, and nobody comes in for a coffee, it is fairly easy to see where energy would wane, and even the act of flipping that close sign to open at whatever time becomes a chore. Why am I even doing this? Why am I spending time on this? And again, forget the fine. Obviously, you got to pay your bills and all that, but is it more expensive to open or stay closed? That's a different chat again. But here, especially if you are running the shop by yourself, if you don't have a team to fall back on, that's a thing. Why am I opening this store? Nobody's coming in anyway. Why am I working on this project? Nobody cares about it. Why am I working on it? Nobody's going to care. That's sort of a self-defeatist attitude. In a team scenario, maybe one or more team members are wandering off. The other team members, whatever the total number, are not sure what to do. They don't know what to say, how to ask, so they let the wandering team member or members do their thing. This would compound across the team, and it isn't long until there is a sense that I am the only one doing anything. Your team may as well be the empty coffee shop. Now, I've worked at places, actual companies with actual like money invested and so on, where some parts of the company just decide to disappear. They don't show up, or they sequester themselves away, and they don't show up to the larger meetings and so on. They become a sort of a rogue element. That's kind of unhealthy. But when you're in a team, there's a certain responsibility for all involved to treat the team like a team. So that is something to think about. It's not quite stalling. That's maybe a different problem. But stalling and burnout, stalling versus burnout are they the same? Are they connected? Are these formal definitions? No. I am not a social psych expert or trained in that field in any way or anything related. Just lived experience again. Your mileage may vary, but who knows? You may identify with these observations. You might even agree. I will say, in my opinion, in my opinion, a stall could lead. I don't know who's typing this stuff. They're fired. In my opinion, a stall could lead to burnout, but I am going to suggest that a stall could help avoid burnout. What could that mean? A stall is probably often taken as some form of procrastination, like, oh, you just don't want to work. I've heard that one. In fact, I heard that one time when I was working at Palm on our the cell phone. I was at work 30 days in a row, 30 consecutive days, and we're not talking 9 to 5. Probably 9 to 5 and then 5 to 9. They were very long days, 30 of them in a row. And at some point I said, I would like to work less. I'm going to work on some stuff that will help to work less. And then I heard something like, oh, you just don't want to work. I don't want to work 30 days in a row again. So beware of other people trying to judge your situation. I've certainly written a lot, not a whole book, or maybe technically not a whole book, but could add up to a book, a completely nonsensical book. But writer's block is a real thing. For example, this shows up when I record an episode of any of my audio programs later in the day. Production by a street. So yeah, occasionally anybody can sort of feel like I'm not able to connect the pen with the paper. My thoughts are not flowing. I'm stalled. You can call it writer's block or whatever you want. Do you have Amazon boxes stacked up to get rid of, but they just keep coming? I've talked about this when I was doing Amazon Vine reviews. There's too much going on. Not being an Amazon Vine reviewer was a great decision. I'm done with doing that, at least for now. I don't know what the future will hold, but every once in a while you just got to say, you know what, this is not working. I'm going to take a break. And it's not procrastination. It's not necessarily even giving up. It's definitely, though, reordering things. Do you ever leave dishes in the sink to soak? Do you have trash to put out? Oh, I'm just going to rest one more thing on top of the trash can. Everything will be fine. And the list goes on and on. Is it procrastination? Maybe sometimes, but not always. Sometimes there's something else going on. Our personal energy, our drive has dipped. Maybe it is procrastination. Maybe it is some deeper meaning. So yeah, don't throw around that P word as if it's the end all and be all. There might be something else going on. Burnout, on the other hand, I will suggest is more not physically, like, although that could happen. Be careful of that. Violent. It's a violent thing internally, perhaps. We're not talking about punching anyone or punching walls, although that could happen. It's always a possibility. But this is a defeat and proactive halting, possibly getting away from the task at hand, going silent, maybe disappearing for a while or longer. I've had enough. Throwing your hands up, quitting a job, for example, that's kind of an act of violence. I'm done. Yelling, frustrated. It's not just taking a break. It's stepping over some line, perhaps. If we use the gym analogy, there is a stall might be that last rep or two where a spot is needed to get the bar to move. Oh, okay, help. Burnout is actual failure in the weightlifting sense. The muscles are done. The bar is not moving. Someone's going to have to grab that thing and pull it up off of you. You're done. Burnout. And again, there may be some actual clinical or accepted definitions. I'm using the lived experience version, so you may have a slightly different take. That's fine. So some things to notice. This is where the stalling could possibly help avoid burnout. When I was in high school in the AFJ ROTC, that's Air Force Junior ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, AFJ ROTC program, and that's a story for another time perhaps. That's 4 years worth. We had an opportunity to visit the hypobaric chamber, low pressure chamber at Williams Air Force Base in Chandler, Arizona, thanks to our NCO, non-commissioned officer instructor, Chris Larry's, in fact, having worked at the facility when he was active duty. Here, pilots were trained to recognize the symptoms of hypoxia, and usually hypoxic hypoxia, or lack of oxygen reaching the brain. So this can happen at super high altitudes above, I want to say 35,000 feet, 30,000, somewhere in there. You start to, your time of useful consciousness without breathing equipment can start to drop pretty quickly. So you want to make sure in a low pressure and therefore low partial pressure of oxygen situation where your brain's not getting enough oxygen, you want to be able to recognize that. So they could take corrective action sooner rather than later. Without recognizing the situation and taking corrective action, a pilot alone in a plane or even with another in a rear seat perhaps, where the person in the rear may not be observing the full situation. You can't see the person, can't see their eyes rolling back. You'll only hear the sounds of warning bells and whatnot. So with another person in the rear seat, you're kind of responsible for them too, huh? You might lose consciousness completely and things don't go well from there. Similarly, if we are stalling while we're in the middle of our pursuits, we need to recognize that and take care of ourselves with some corrective action. We'll get to that in a second because that's the topic of this episode today. But if you are not making progress according to your own expectations or the expectations of others, if the thought of responding to how is it going or when are you going to fill in the blank, finish that thing, release that thing, launch that thing, if these make you cringe, recoil, or maybe even retreat, these are just some of the potential signs of a stall. Now, if you fly off the handle and start yelling and screaming, that's maybe you're closer to burnout than you thought. But if you're on a team and your team is giving you quiet space, they may have been seeing the stall, even if you don't. They may not know what to do about it. That's a different episode also for yet another time. Team communication is a whole thing. But your team may or may not be like trained psychologists, so they all kind of have to go with what they can see and what they understand, and communication will go a long way there. So be a part of the team. But the stall can be good. You are slowing down, taking a break, setting the thing aside, whatever it is, whether you intended to or not. Maybe you just don't have the wherewithal, the energy, the oomph to open that text editor or open your coffee shop or prepare. Sometimes you just got to take a day or two or more. So you're taking a break and all that. In our hypobaric example, once you recognize the signs, you can take corrective action. The pilot needs to get down to a lower altitude and check the oxygen system. That's that. And it's in that order. And that's what they train to do. Once you recognize, now if you are sufficiently hypoxic, you may be feeling quite good. You may be intoxicated on the lack of oxygen. And so you don't immediately recognize like, hey, this is not good. This is a dangerous situation. You may be enjoying yourself or drifting off, imagining, daydreaming, if you will. Those are not good. So you need to take corrective action, but you need to learn how to recognize and notice that you're like, oh, something is not right here. Why am I feeling a little dizzy? Or, go through the hypobaric training and you'll see. Sometimes you just got to push away from the tasks at hand and take a study break of sorts. Close the coffee shop for a day. Go see a movie. Take a trip, stir things up a little bit, or maybe, just maybe, decide whether this stall is a message that your interest may be moving in a different direction. That is something you may want to talk to your team about if you have a team. Hey, this isn't working out. What comes next? You got to acknowledge those signs. Well, the first thing to note perhaps is that the stall could be a precursor to burnout, as I mentioned. However, a stall is basically a response to a change in attitude, energy, or some other personal factors that drive us away from the task at hand, which can actually help to avoid burnout. Is when we try to push through a stall or when we are not allowed to acknowledge our stall scenario. Like, we got to release this. Don't even go home. Stay away. I've been in those situations before. Actually, I've stayed at work for multiple days in a row. By the way, it's never worth it. Unless you're saving people's lives, it's come on. So we can actually avoid burnout by allowing the stall to take us away from the problem, the stress and so on. It is when we try to push through a stall, or when we are not allowed to acknowledge our stall scenario, like I said, and there could be any number of real and even legitimate reasons for this. I'm sure we can all imagine that, and maybe we've been in such scenarios to some degree, that we're not allowed to embrace the stall. So first, recognize the stall. Recognize that this is happening, just like our hypobaric chamber. Reset expectations, even if they are your own of yourself, or have a talk with your manager, or talk to your team, etc. Do you have an exercise regimen that includes some quantified self-measurements? Do you have your watch or your ankle, your chest strap that's measuring your respiratory rates and so on? Do you have a step counter of some sort, or a heart rate, or blood oxygen readings, or all of those things? Are you counting reps of your different exercises, how much weight and how many times and so on? Maybe you're timing yourself, you're measuring your pulse between. Whatever the case is, and you find you are not reaching those quantified goals, what do you do? Rather than trying to push through this reduction in performance, and I'm not talking like, oh, I'm a little bit tired today. I'm saying over time, you start to see a trend. You're not getting to where you wanted to be. Rather than trying to push through those reductions in performance, consider why this may be happening. Maybe you just need to rest. Maybe you're not getting enough sleep. Change it up a bit. Maybe change the time of day that you go to the gym or do your exercising. Maybe you should alter the routine, change your order around a little bit. Number of times per week, maybe you got to change that up a little bit. Maybe you need to go with someone, or maybe try out a trainer, or whatever the case may be. It depends on what you're doing, of course, but the very same things can be examined for your other endeavors. Are you leaving some important items on your to-do list longer than you should? Are you trying to avoid them? Are you not on schedule to meet a launch or release commitment? And is that frustrating and then kind of feeding back on you to slow you down even more? Are you making assumptions not on schedule? I'm sorry. Are you making assumptions that are not panning out, which can lead you frustration and angst that drives you away from continuing the effort to tune those assumptions? The self-fulfilling prophecy problem. I'm thinking about all the stuff I have to do, and so I can't focus on the stuff I have to do, and I can't spend time on trying to figure out how to adjust the things I need. Yeah, so it all feeds back on itself, and it can lead to what is actually a stall, which is a reduction in your own personal productivity or progress, or however you want to define these things, but you're essentially slowing down. As the saying goes, the first step in solving a problem is recognizing there is one. The purpose of that hypobaric chamber training, the message your body is sending you when you need a spot at the gym, a spot as in somebody to help you. Maybe that snooze button coming in handy way too often. It has never been more true that we have the tools and methods available to measure and examine if we need to. And there are paths to conversation, whether formal with a professional or more casual with peers or teammates, to actually assess these scenarios and see what's going on. You have to recognize that there's something to try to solve. The hypobaric chamber, by the way, we did not, thanks to insurance and whatnot, we were not actually in the military, so we couldn't actually try it. But the stories that people would tell there, essentially, you can look someone in the eye when they are sufficiently hypoxic. You can look them in the eye and say, if you don't put your mask on right now, you're going to die. And they'll just look back at you, and this is anecdotal. I didn't see this myself, but they will look back at you and they'll be unfazed. So you have to be able to recognize when you're in this situation and not freak out. You should recognize it earlier and take the corrective action. What do they say about training? It's the training. The training will save your life. All that. Hopefully, if I'm talking to you about something that you feel might be life-threatening if you don't take action, this is not the audio program for you. That's a different consult a professional, please. Now, the next thing would be to identify a path. I don't know that anyone wants to reach burnout, so let us assume that we are recognizing our stall through whatever means. Now we need to do something about it. No, that is not correct. Now we need to decide that we need to do something about it. That decision may not be automatic. Somebody else may not be telling you, or you may not automatically say, oh, of course I need to do this. This is a proactive step. Proaction and the lack of proaction is one of the decisions that we need to make. The proaction and the lack of proaction is one of the signs of the stall itself. Something to think about. Acknowledge that proaction is the first button we need to press, and check that the green light comes on. Like, okay, I'm going to do something. Is this going to work? Is it going to be effective? But you need to make that decision. And if it does not, there may be some additional examination or consideration. So take that time. So do some assessment, figure out what you're going to do. You have to make those decisions first. Now, we're not getting into depression definitions and diagnoses and whatnot. Great. Landscaping. I might have to pause here. But if you find you're sleeping more, you're less inclined to do work or to pursue the goals that you're trying to pursue, it's a good time to take a step back and see, do I need to do some assessment here? You know that the saying, if you ask if you are healthy, then you probably are. It's the people that lose track of that get into trouble. So if you are able to take note that you need to make some proactive decisions, or at least some analysis and examination, you're probably in a good state, but that's a good time to do it. You could adjust expectations. It could be schedule. It could be goals. It could be resources. It could be personal health of some kind. A variety of factors could be leading to this stall situation. Take a look at where these things are making themselves known and decide what will work for you to work through these. And this is super true for solopreneur endeavors, but it's also true with teams. So this is where team communication can also come into play. Can you take some of this work this week? Can I catch up on what I need to do? Hey, I'm sick. Hey, I have other things to deal with for a period of time, and so on. So it's possible to let external factors lead you to say, I can't spend time on this. And then it's a feedback loop again. I didn't finish this thing. I'm falling behind. Now I can't catch up. I'll never catch up. I can't even figure out what I need to do to catch up, etc., etc. I'm going to take a pause here while we do some landscape, a landscape pause. That's what it is. Right back. All right, we're back. Hopefully, I don't know why I don't remember Fridays, landscaping days. So yeah, so sometimes, and I'll tell you right now for myself, and the next little bullet item here, we'll cover this more, but for myself, if I find that I'm talking about or thinking about or planning for the things that I'm going to do or intend to do or want to do, but I'm not knocking down the things that I should have done on that list, so I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, this is a time for me to say, wait a minute, the stall that I'm encountering is I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm seeing that the things that I want to do are not happening because I'm not getting the things that I need to do to reach the things that I want to do. Does that make sense? So the thing I want to do for next, so for example, I want to get my primary point of publication websites for my various audio programs up and running. I accomplished the mechanical parts. The websites are functional. There's SSL certificate or TLS. So you could do HTTPS. I have analytics on there so I can see if I'm actually getting web traffic. And then when you see like, oh, I'm not really getting much web traffic, so I can talk about, or I can think about, or I can plan for, oh, okay, next steps would be to make the sites look nicer and add some other features that I want to do. But at some point, well, I'm not really getting much visitation. So if I'm going to promote them, I should have something there. So they kind of stall, but if I keep talking about what I'm going to do next without addressing the fundamentals, then I start building up what's called technical debt or progress debt, if you like. And that can be very frustrating. So at some point you have to say, okay, I'm just going to not talk about this for a little while and see how I can adjust what's going on, and how do I want to try to reach out to people and see if more people would visit the websites, or how much time should I spend on them until I reach that point, etc. So there's some, you got to do some adjustments, some tuning. The first thing to do is to decide, hey, there's something to look at here. There's something to analyze, and I have to make a decision about how I want to handle this and what I want to do next. This is what many people mean when they say they are adulting. Time to be an adult. It's a variety of factors to consider, and you have to decide when or where these factors are making themselves known and when they're making themselves known, and decide what will work for you. to work for these or to work for me? Which things can I adjust? Which things do I need to deal with? Which ones can I ignore? Maybe you want to go with the Eisenhower or the getting things done or the, what's the other one? What's the SWOT, grid. So you can use various tools and methods that have kind of been established over time, how to factor the situation into things I can control, things I can't. So, as I just said, things I can adjust or control, things that I need to deal with. So they're urgent. Which can I ignore? The ones that are inconsequential, that are getting in my way when they really shouldn't, and so on. So these are times when, again, adulting means taking a look at the situation and trying to assess it. Maybe that means asking somebody else for their thoughts and views, and that's totally allowed. One of the things I see often, especially from my side of this, is expectations settling. Settling is a different thing. When you tune the expectations down to reality. Expectation setting within a team or at large, that means it could just be me, but when I talk about stuff with other people, like, oh, this is the thing we're going to do, people get excited or they get interested or they start asking, hey, how's that coming? What is it going to be? Can we try it? Etc. Are you working on something with a launch date that has come and gone and your potential users or customers are asking, where is the thing? Maybe worse, have they stopped asking? That can be annoying. Is there silence if you ask out loud, why am I doing this? Right? If you're counting on cheering from the masses, maybe it's premature. Maybe if they don't even know what you're talking. I run into this a lot where I will describe something and people will say, what? Why don't you just use WordPress? Or they'll come up with some simplifying solution. And you want to say, that's not how innovation works. But what I've taken to doing is not talking too much about the future, setting expectations so much, just enough so I kind of get a feel of whether there'd be some interest. And then I say, okay, well, I'm gonna go work on this and I'm gonna keep it to myself and I'm not gonna talk about it too much. So some of the things that I've worked on or that I am working on right now, I don't really talk about too much, or I give enough information so there's some notion, some inkling, like, oh, interesting, okay. Oh, you haven't talked about that in a while. That's right, because I'm busy working on it. Even if I haven't, even if I'm stalled, I don't need to tell everyone I'm stalled, right? Like, I haven't set a release date. So if I have to readjust some things for myself, for my own productivity, my own well-being, I don't have to feel pressured by external forces. I don't have to. And if I had a team of people, the team would be that first context conversation, right? They already know what we are trying to accomplish. They each have their other challenges and situations, and we can all get together and say, okay, we need to move some stuff around. We need to share the load differently, and so on and so on. So these are all the benefits of communication, which is part of adulting, if you really think about it. Why am I doing this, though? That's a tough one. If you feel like you've reached that point, you've stalled out enough, so you're like, does anyone even care that I'm working on this? Hopefully you get a positive answer to that. But guess what? Sometimes that's an indicator. Understanding this is probably the beginning of a reality check that will lead to adjustable deliverables. Like, oh, maybe I should aim for next year. I'm adjusting schedules. Oh, maybe I should work one fewer day per week and see if I can feel a little bit better about this. Setting expectations differently. Who knows? Maybe setting whatever the thing is aside completely for a little while or a long time, or maybe permanently. Maybe that's the way to go. I will say that when I was working on this application for mobile vendors, I used to work in the morning on the thing. I used to go to a coffee shop, about 10-minute walk from where I was living at the time. That was the place that would eventually catch on fire. That was a bummer. So I used to go to this coffee shop. I would work during the day, and then I would go to a food truck event in the evenings, and I would sit in people's food trucks while they were prepping or something and say, okay, what do you think of this? If you were using this, would this work for you? Should I move this? So I was able to get actual feedback. But what I was also doing was feeding my own, maybe imposter syndrome. Like, do people is this really interesting? Are people really into this? And I would always get a little kind of reinforcement, a reminder of like, can I just give you my money? Or, this is better than what we've seen. Other people are trying to do something like this, but it's not even close to this. A lot of positive reinforcement. So if you're in that situation, and that's one of the benefits of open source productions, right? If people can either watch or participate in the process and the progress, that could be good. That could be reinforcing of your own efforts and your own sort of motivation, your own energy levels. If you get that positive response from people regularly, sometimes you might have to come up with a different way of getting to that. So yeah, for me personally, that was a good thing in that scenario, to be able to get that feedback from who would be my eventual customers. So then that house fire came along, kind of threw a wrench in the schedule. So once you know that there's a situation, once you know that like I'm not making the progress I want, I'm not making the progress I need to make, I'm not going to hit the goals. Once you have investment, there could be opportunities for your investors to maybe stir up trouble for you. So you may need to say, hey, I need to do some adulting. Meeting up with people in similar situations can help a bit. By this, I mean other people pursuing a startup, for example, other people with a business that is having a tough time. Maybe now the restaurant businesses, the smaller businesses here in the greater Vegas area have been having some issues with the reduction in tourism. A couple of well-known places are shutting down that have been in business for decades because they've run out of runway, and that's horrible. That's awful. The restaurants get the news and attention here in Vegas. Not everybody does. So I'm going to wager my $1 that there are others not in the restaurant business that are going through similar situations. Other people with a business that is having a tough time might be interesting to talk to. Other people aspiring for change, basically a support group of some sort, but maybe one step back from that formality, maybe just a little bit more casual, but more of a club, the startup club, the genius lunch. One might immediately think that a free lunch at a random gathering of people in the startup scene is all one might need. I'm going to suggest no, this is not the case. That is not not that there's not value in such gatherings, that's for you to decide, but a smaller group of participation, so not 100 people, but more maybe 10, 12, and with similar intent, and that's the key word there, intent, maybe with a similar experience profile of the people in this gathering, this may be more valuable. A random meeting or random meetup, I suppose, might be transactional, may have different goals and intent intermingled, while a specific gathering or gathering intent, where the group size is smaller and participation is encouraged, may offer much more return. So if you meet at a place and you have a conversation, but it's really somebody looking for new clients, their transaction is not quite what yours was. If you're at something like a genius lunch, for example, you may be having a conversation. Oh yeah, we're coming up on this, or that we have to. Oh, I've had some similar situation, or oh, we're always looking for where to hire, or where to get the best this, or how to reach out to potential, how to beta test, how can we launch our coffee shop so that people know about. You can start to talk about the similar experiences, similar situations, possible solutions, and so on. So it's a little bit more productive if it can't guarantee that, of course, but the possibilities are there when the intent of such a gathering is not where can I go to get what I need, right? This is still true, but it's not, oh, I can go here and check the I'm in the startup scene box and get free food and talk to people about what I'm working on and get some sort of oohs and ahs, but it's an actual productive gathering of people with similar interests, similar intent. Again, the intent is key, and it might be uplifting. It might be a positive experience. It generally was when we were doing these, specifically the Genius Lunches back in the day. So yeah, the Genius Lunch is an example of this type of engagement, but only one example. So I've given that one example. There are others, countless others to be sure. And we cannot forget the implications of a team scenario where engaging with the other members of a team is essential. Can this sort of interaction take place online via textual, and maybe your team is remote, but so just in general, can we do this through text messages, through chats in a forum, whether it's one-on-one or in a chat forum, multiple people, multi-person conversations, private or public, or maybe via, should we go on Twitter and vent? GitHub comments, whatever the case may be. Or maybe via an online video conversation. That depends on you, of course, and also depends on the others in those interactions. But generally speaking, and I'm just a fellow human, I have no professional or researched insight other than what we all kind of know or think we know. Humans usually do well with personal interaction and usually in person. Ponder all of this and consider what each brings to the interaction individually, as a team, as a group, in public or in private, online, offline, in person, etc. Keeping an eye on whether this is helping your cause or not. One of the problems could be that if you feel like you're stalled out and you are participating in conversations, are you now trying to solve the problems of others and you are using that as a device to avoid tackling your own situation? So you got to kind of keep an eye on that too. That's more adulting. Nobody likes that, I know, but it's kind of the deal. Take that study break, consider attending demo or pitch events. Do something different, but at the same time, notice progress and reaction as an outsider. This is useful to remind yourself, especially if you were not familiar with this demo prior, whatever you're going to watch, whatever you're going to see. Wow, I didn't know somebody was working on that. That's pretty cool, right? The people work on things all the time, and most people have no idea until they do. Advertise what you are doing proactively when the time is right, maybe not before, and watch for a response. Tune as needed. And this is, again, where it's nice to participate in gatherings of people with similar intent. Hey, I'm working on this thing. It's not ready to announce yet, but do you want to take a look at it and see, get some feedback from people who are in a similar sort of circumstance or situation where you're working on something, you aren't quite ready to announce it to the world, but it would be nice to get someone to take a glance at it. Sort of like, an editor or somebody who's going to proofread something, or just do a little sanity check, if you like. These are not bad things to consider. So yeah, but advertising or announcing or letting people in when the time is right is a thing. And by the way, with open source projects where people can see what you're working on, whether it's computer source code or whether it's maybe you have all your recipes online for the restaurant you're going to open, or whatever the case may be, people can see what you're doing and they can probably say, oh, you're not done yet, but look at this. You've done so much. So nobody's going to be saying, oh, you're not even doing anything. And this is a problem with open source also, is that if you do stall a little bit, you're like, oh, I don't want to keep working on this. I want to take a break. When are you going to finish? So it can be a double-edged sword kind of thing, but I think transparency probably wins over time. So who's going to say what? Oh, how come you're not working on that thing that I'm not contributing to in any way other than my complaining? That doesn't get people very far. So you'll probably win in that one. But do it when the time is right, when it matches what you are, where you are yourself in the timeline. Tune as needed, though. In this magic, no, I'm sorry. Is this magic? Is any of this magic? No. But there's a lot to observe and learn around us, mostly from people as potential or actual customers. And that was my food truck example. I was talking to the people who I wanted to eventually be my users, my customers of this service I was building. So getting their feedback along the way was useful, and it gave them a sense that, oh, you're actually listening to us, you're paying attention to us. So it was generally a positive interaction. So your actual customers, your potential clients, collaborators, people you may be running into or who may take an interest you don't even know about yet, and so on. It is very easy to undersample that population and allow ourselves to stall by not recognizing the actual size of the population of your total addressable market, if you like. So if you find yourself getting trapped, and this happens to me a lot, where you're only talking to a few people because of whatever the circumstances are, you interact with people that are physically near you or easily reachable, people that respond. And in this modern day, a lot of people do not. It's easy to make an assessment based on a smaller sample than is probably appropriate. And that can also lead to stalling, where you're like, do I even want to spend time on this? Maybe I'll just work on something else. And before you know it, you're like, where did the last 2 months go? I didn't even make any progress on that thing that should have taken me a week. So measurable and incremental gains could be a useful tool to help unstall you. Getting some external inputs, getting some external response, or again, seeing that other people are doing is a reminder that, oh, I have good ideas. I can pursue them. I have a great idea for a coffee shop. Why am I not getting customers? Maybe people just don't know about it. Maybe ask. Wander around and ask people. I have done this multiple times. You just walk up to people and say, hey, did you know about this coffee shop down the street? What do you think about it? And they might tell you, oh, I didn't even know about it. Or they might say, oh, I went in there one day and there was nobody there. Like right now, because I'm here talking to you instead of being behind the counter making coffees. So I think part of the problem with stalling is losing track of where the thing that you're working on falls into the bigger picture. I know that happens to me for sure. I will often get people who ask when, like, again, this can be frustrating. Oh, when is that thing? How is it coming? Are you still working on it? But those, taken in the right context, those are encouragement. They're like, oh, people are still interested in this. But it can also be frustrating because it's a reminder that, I'm still not making progress. So that's when you have to step back and say, what's causing me to not make progress? For myself, I know for myself, I tend to stack up ideas that I want to pursue, and then I do the switch latency. So to switch between ideas starts to take longer. You kind of fall out of a headspace, or you lose your thought momentum. What was that thing I was going to do? Oh, that's right. Write things down. But it's very easy to then say, I'm not getting anything done because I have too many things that I want to get done. And I'm not picking one and making incremental progress where I can actually look at that progress and say, oh, yes, okay, today these other things work, and so on. That can become particularly problematic on teams, but that's where you get things like scrums or agile in general, where you can, story points and however you want to measure that stuff, but you can actually check off completable tasks, right? Oh, we're going to address this thing, this user story, this feature, and we're 80% done after 2 weeks or 8 days or whatever. So being able to factor the challenge or the problem or the endeavor into measurable pieces that can then be recognized as being done, or at least small d done, can go a long way. So these are all things that I've encountered myself, and maybe you have too. And yes, I've just described a few things that are leaning into the software development realm, but anything you're working on, there's a lot in common. Recognizing that even though you're not getting sort of accolades every day, now customers walking through your door, if you have a storefront, that's a tricky one to rationalize. And we're not even considering the finances again, but what's going on here? Why is, and if one person does come in, hey, how did you find us? Or it's an easier way to have a conversation in that context because there's only one person. But yeah, I think the take home really is, if you're feeling stalled, now burnout, that's a different thing. That's maybe too late. But if you feel stalled, I would recommend, and this is what I do, I'm trying to do it more and more effectively, is to take that time when you're stalled and see why, what's the root cause, and what can I do about it to not solve the problem 100% today, but, okay, so let me, if there are 5 reasons that I'm not making the progress I want to make, what's one I could try to address it now, or this week, or this weekend? And then after that, we'll try the next one and see if we can actually start turning around and getting back onto a track that we're comfortable with. That will work out nicely. So that's generally the approach I take. If I'm working with somebody else, you have to have some communication. Or, for example, our Innovate for Vegas Foundation, completely volunteer. You can only ask. You can't say, hey, we have funding to worry about, or we have launch dates and so on. So really what it comes down to is, if you're not interested, then don't spend the time, and don't spend my time, and vice versa, right? So you have to take some decisive action with conversation and say, here's what's up. Don't allow your energy to be misspent, and always take care of yourself. So if you're feeling stalled, look at where you are first, right? There's a thing that they tell you when you do CERT training. There's a thing that you should recognize, and I think they tell it during the what do they call it? The pre-departure instructions. Always put the mask on yourself first. In CERT training, you have to make sure you're okay first before you can help anyone else. So whatever the case, whatever the possible or apparent causes or root causes of a stall might be, what the things that are slowing you down, or the things that are giving you troubles, or or making you feel as though there's troubles, look within first and try to address the personal first before, if there is a team, communicate with your team, but come from a place of knowing what's up on your side. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I can say. Every aspect of the things you're working on starts with you. So that's a good way to begin examination, is to look at what's up with you, what's getting in your way, what's distracting. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Sometimes a stall is just like that weight, the gym scenario. It's you telling yourself, okay, we're biting off more than we can chew here. We're trying to push too much weight. We're trying to lift too much. Time to slow it down. Time to step back. Time to take a rest. Time to go see a movie. Time to go have a coffee. Time to call somebody you haven't talked to in a while. There is nothing wrong with remembering every once in a while that there is more to life than the thing that you are focusing 180% of your time on right now. Why are you doing it after all? So don't lose track of that. That's my advice to end this episode on. But I was thinking, if you've made it this far, maybe you would have some thoughts on this. I have talked about the FACE before, the focused attention calendars for everyone. And as I mentioned in that presentation, every quarter, so every 3 months, it happens to be every 3 months. It's not necessarily like quarterly, but every 3 months, because of our calendar arrangement, there are 3 4-week months, and then there's a bonus week, right? So every quarter there's 4 weeks times 3. So 3 months, 4 weeks, that's 12. 12 times 4, right? 12 weeks, 4 quarters. 12 times 4 is 48, but there are 52 weeks in the year. See how that works out? So as it happens, every quarter there's a bonus week. So that week in the FACE context, the 4 weeks would be aligned with like build, learn, launch, and create, build, learn, launch, whatever order. So that 5th week, every quarter, is rest, recharge, relax, and so on. I honestly think this would be something that could be used as a way to take note of, like, I'm not feeling as productive. I feel like I'm stalling out a little bit. I don't feel like people are excited. I don't feel like I'm excited, and so on. So the built-in rest week, it's right there in the calendar. You don't even have to, you know what? I think you don't have to do any of that. You would just build it into a sort of an ecosystem-wide pattern that says, hey, every 3 months, you kind of have to take a moment and reflect or recharge or rest. You pick your favorite R word. So R weeks are already on the calendar. We just have to actually remember that. So that's something I will talk about again, if I can get the FACE calendar built into my Muni. But that's a longer story for another time. So, and by the way, I just have to say this as a closing note. If you talk about things in the context of understanding that, I really got to get back on track, and you just say it, you tell someone else, or you speak into a microphone and maybe nobody's even listening, but you say it out loud, I got to get back on track with the content transform tool so I can get the other template stuff working, so I can build on the site thing that I want to do. So if there's one little thing that's getting in the way of further progress, sometimes just saying that out loud to yourself or others is saying, why am I not doing that? Why have I not finished that thing? Why have I let it sit there and languish? Why am I spending more time thinking about it than doing it? You can start asking yourselves those questions and then saying them out loud. And if somebody says, yeah, why? Give me an answer. And you're like, I don't know. Maybe that's the can opening and some worms slithering out to get back to where you feel like you want to or should be. Okay, that's where we're going to leave it for today. It's been an hour and 3 minutes by my wall clock. We'll truncate some silence, probably get down to about 55 minutes. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thanks for listening. And if you are stalled, we should do like a monthly open forum, like almost like office hours, but just come by and we'll set up some sort of, it could be in person. It doesn't have to be online, but online is easier for some people. They don't like to go outside and have sunlight hit them or anything like that. But just like the Genius Lunch, getting people to embrace a new thing is a little bit of a trick. But I'll tell you, the Genius Lunch was 100% effective when we were doing this. So we just have to get some first movers. And maybe it's something to discuss at our first Genius Lunch of 2026. TBD. All right, get out of here. If I don't see you through the week, I'll see you through the window in 2026. Bye-bye.